So, dear colleagues, thank you so much for the invitation. It's a great honor to be part of this program. And my name is Sergiu Musteață. I'm professor of history and archaeology at the History and Geography Department of the Pedagogical State University on Creangă from Chisinau, Republic of Moldova. And today we will discuss about one of my recent book, Nomads and Native Beyond the Danube and Black Sea region during the 8th and 9th centuries, which was published in 2018 under Amsterdam University Press and Arc Humanities Press. It's a long story of this book. My PhD was focused also on the Prut Dnister area, the territory, the region close to the Black Sea. And I tried to analyze the archaeological sources, records concerning the populations and the habitat of this region. And during my next step of postdoc, let's say, I tried to develop and enlarge the area of research and to try to analyze the archaeological records from Dniester to Tisa River. So let's say between Ukraine and Hungary, today area of Europe, but the area itself, it's well known as Carpathian Danube region, or as the book it's called Danube and Black Sea, because everything is connected to the Black Sea region, from the east to the west, from the north to the south, and that's why the region was attractive since prehistoric time. But of course, during the early Middle Ages, the region is interesting, and it's good to know because not so much written sources we have from this period of time, and archaeology it's the main source which helping us to understand the development and the realities of this period of time. Each project concerning prehistory or antiquity or early Middle Ages or Middle Ages itself are bringing together the sources from various areas, and especially archaeology. But in case of no written sources, of course, archaeology it's the main record area which helping us to study and to try to recover the history of communities, of populations from one or another region. That's why in this project, I try to bring together especially archaeological records, which are a result of archaeological excavations, of course, done during the last, let's say, 100 years by archaeologists from different countries. And also, I try to analyze what exactly was done during different political regimes, so totalitarian regime, post-totalitarian regimes, how archaeology itself was as a tool used by different scholars, and how results have been presented to the public. That's why I use the data from scientific papers, which published archaeologists from Ukraine, Republic of Moldova, or at that time Soviet Union, and later on Independent Republic of Moldova, and the Ukraine Republic too. So Romania, Hungary, Serbia. That's why I try to bring together the data in one project and to discuss about different issues concerning the populations and communities during these two centuries. But also I visited, of course, museums and other institutions, scientific institutions from different countries to try to look to the objects which was discovered, and now the artifacts are settled in different archives, museums, or scientific institutions in different countries. So not just scientific publications, but also to check the real artifacts, because if you are not checking the real artifacts, if you're not feeling the artifacts, it's not so well. So that's why I collected the information from publications, from archives, and also from, let's say, museums and other institutions which have great collections of artifacts concerning 8th and 9th centuries. So, first of all, of course, each archaeologist, when is starting the project, is trying to develop this catalogue of data, or register, so we are using different terms, to try to establish the sources. So my project included to develop, and first of all, to develop a database of the archaeological informations which we know from the publications and from the reports. And that's why I bring together over 2,500 settlements and data about areas which are including remains or which were discovered artifacts from concerning the 8th and 9th century communities. So, and each, let's say, settlement or each point in my database, of course, includes references to the archaeological excavations and how many, let's say, artifacts have been discovered, how, which kinds of artifacts have been discovered and analyzed. It is a settlement, or it's a hill fort, or it is a cemetery, or just an individual tomb. So the database includes all kinds of data concerning these 2 centuries, which have been discovered during, let's say, 100 years or the last 1.5 centuries. Yeah, the maps which I published in my book are a result of my research, because the maps have been done by myself as a result of this database which I developed. And it's very important to put the data on the map to understand the area of spreading the settlements, which kind of territory from topographic point of view have been used. So it's so-called land use or territory use, how population have been distributed in different parts of the region, how many settlements are concentrated in one part or in another part, and to try to find the explanations why some parts or some territories have been more attractive than other. So also by doing the maps, I raise some questions and also try to to find the answers. Why some territories are so much or so dense, the density of inhabitants is so high, and in other it's actually empty or no data concerning some regions. So the answer which I presented in my book could be from different points of view, especially the region which were presented more interest of the scholars, have been more attractive, hilly area or some areas close to the rivers, but also we have some empty regions because the archaeologists didn't pay so much attention, or the region itself was not so attractive during one or another period because the climate changes, or because too much water, or the territory was not attractive because no resources for daily life or for living. So in each case, I try to find the answer and to analyze the distribution and the concentrations. That the maps are very important for historical research, and of course, in this case, or in my case, for archaeology too, and also for the general public too. When you have a map in front of you, you could see, of course, some dots or some points, but such remarks are presenting settlements, and you could see the legend and description, what does it mean, and it's easy to understand. So how many settlements we have, how many hill forts, the distribution, where the hill forts, for example, have been placed in which part of the territory, and also the cemeteries and tombs, the distribution. So I think the maps are an important tool for presenting and interpreting the historic data, and in my case, archaeological data too. Actually, the chapter number 2 is discussing the habitation and the whole kind of issue concerning the typology of the settlements, and also the construction, which kind of the construction they have been used, which kind of houses or dwellings or other types of construction for economic activities. And the next chapter, the 3rd chapter, discuss the economy. So that's why I think the 2nd and the 3rd chapter are very important for my project and for presenting this issue for the public, because are presenting the level of knowledge, what we know about this period of time, but also the level of development of communities from the 8th and 9th century in this Carpathian Danube Black Sea region. And I'm discussing about, as I already mentioned, concentration of settlements in one or another region, about the density, and also the way of communication between communities, or way of exchanges, which we could observe by artifacts which we discovered, or which we know from archaeological excavations. But this is already part of the 3rd chapter, where I'm discussing, based on artifacts, which kind of economy was developed by communities in this period of time. And agriculture is the most developed, let's say, area of economy. the land and also the animals which they used to have during this period, according to the archaeological data, and especially archaeozoological analysis. We could discuss about different species of animals or birds presented in archaeological, let's say, layers or settlements in this area. So that's why bringing together the data, we could analyze and we could find the answer about which kind of area of economy have been developed, and also the level of development. Because by the tools, which kind of tools they use for agriculture stuff, or which kind of, I don't know, other issues concerning the agriculture, and comparing with the neighbor areas, we could understand the level of development, but also about the exchanges between communities from one or another region, how far or how close have been the economies work together in this period of time. Yes, you correctly observed that I pay attention to the coins. I have another book concerning the Byzantine coins in the Eastern Carpathian region, and but we could discuss. We could discuss of another occasion about the coinage in this area, but for this period of times, a long period, scholars call this area or this period the period without coins or without coinage, which is not correctly, because we have not so many coins like we have in Roman time. But in early Middle Ages, especially 8th and 9th century, we have some kind of coins, especially coming from Byzantium, but also we have some Arabic coins coming from the East. And at the end of this period, let's say second half of 9th century, a new, let's say, wave of coinage coming from the West, from Western Kingdom, and settle in this area. We cannot talk about the so high role of the coins in the local economies. That's why my conclusion was that this period of times, it's a coins without trade and trade without coins, because we cannot see and we cannot observe the main factor, the coin as a main factor in exchange process. But we have some coins related to, I don't know, maybe occasional exchanges between Byzantium traders and local communities, or some, let's say, military invasions. And by this way, some coins remained in this area. Or we could observe, especially concerning the Arabic coins or Islamic coins, especially from silver, they have been collected as intersect material because of silver, not because of coins. The value, it's not because of coins, but the value of such artifacts because of silver. And we could observe that most of them are collected to be used, I don't know, maybe for production of the jewelry, or to be used for different other things, to produce the goods for other reason or necessities, not exactly for the coins. And this phenomenon, it's very, let's say, large developed in during this period of time. We have a lot of discoveries in Europe, in Eastern Europe, and also phenomenon, it's large and developed from the Nordic countries, let's say from Viking area until Byzantium, or from the East, from the Middle East until Central Europe. So the coins are very attractive, are very important, but we have to analyze very carefully the coins in context of the all artifacts which we discover, which we know from one or another settlement. Good question. I described the situation of the access to the information, access to the artifacts in first chapter when I'm discussing the sources and historiography, how many publications, how the access it is to the artifacts and the publications, and we could observe different stages. For example, during the totalitarian time was not so easy to travel like we are doing today. But some archaeologists established the exchanges since communist time. Later on, early 90s, also the society opened, but the economic opportunities was very less and was not so easy to find the money to travel. I think now, after 3 decades of collapse of Soviet Union, more or less scholars have the opportunity to share the information much easier, much faster than it was before, and also by applying to different scholarship opportunities or fellowship or different projects supported by EU funds or by different private or state foundations or programs. Now it's much easier to travel to Kiev, or to Budapest, to Bucharest, or or to Novi Sad or Belgrade. And most of the scholars, my colleagues, are open-minded colleagues, and they, if you will send an email and asking help, they will do as fast as possible. And also, if you would like to go to some museum and to check the collections, you have to just follow some rules of the museum, to write a letter and letter of interest, and to ask administration permission to go or to give the access to one or another kind of artifacts, and then to go to these museums and work directly of artifacts. So I used to travel a lot, so I saw a lot of artifacts in Romania, in Ukraine, in Hungary, and I think it's normal way and just by this way we could understand better the archaeological artifacts, and also to help each other to try to have a general and to develop overview of one or another region, or to try to collect information concerning one kind or one type of artifacts or another one. So actually every day we are sharing emails and asking help from one to another one to get some papers or some pictures of the artifacts from one or another collection. So I think it's much easier to do research and to try to develop as much as possible qualitative works. I did by myself because I'm an archaeologist by profession. My PhD is in archaeology, and actually most part of my publications are concerned archaeology, and already for more than two decades I'm doing excavations, mostly in Republic of Moldova, but I participate in some excavation in Ukraine, in Romania too. So I visited a lot of sites, and of course I could provide you some pictures from my own excavations concerning early Middle Ages. So I did some excavation in open settlement, but also in a hilfort, which is very nice view, and also some archaeological situation. I think each research has some surprises, and some ideas are changing during the research, because always you are finding something new or something which is a little bit different than you supposed to be. So in my case, I think one example could be concerning the interpretation of the archaeological sources, which is, I think, all the issue, and always it's a problematic one, how to interpret the ethnicity. So because everyone expecting, or not, most of people are expecting from us the answer, so which kind of communities and from which ethnic group the community is coming. Have been they Slavic or Romanic, have been they Avars, or let's say Magyar, Hungarians, or Bulgars, which settled at the end of the 7th century in the Danube and south of Danube region. So that's why interpretation of the archaeological data, it's very difficult concerning the ethnicity. And also chronology is not so easy to say that this artifact or this settlement, it's from this exactly period of time. So always is a question of discussion and try to place from one to another limit. And which it surprised me, a colleague from Romania, from Sibiu, Marian Țiplic, he's also doing research on this period of time, early Middle Ages in Transylvania, and he's doing a lot of excavations on some cemeteries. And the recent results and lab analysis demonstrating that the chronology, it's a little bit different than it was before. In some cases, 5 decades less, or maybe 100 years, like we supposed. For example, the artifacts which we, or the colleagues a few decades ago, and considering or interpreted them as artifacts from 9th century, now by using new tools and new opportunities to analyze, they are dated 100 years early. So that's why it's very interesting, the new opportunity of the chronology interpretation. And I think we have to enlarge such kind of lab analysis, not just by using, let's say, radiocarbon, but also other opportunities, dendrochronology or other opportunities, and to put the data together and to try to develop a tool of chronological interpretation which is more appropriate, or let's say more specific than it was before. So this is a real challenge for all of us. The chapter Spiritual Life, I think chapter number 4 from the book, it is based on the discoveries from the cemeteries and the tombs from the whole region. And based on this data, I'm trying to present which kind of beliefs or which kind of rites and rituals have been used by different communities. And also, as a result of this analysis, we could establish some specific traditions in one or another region. So I think the most easy because many data we have, it's area of Pannonia, western part of Carpathian regions, the area which is, let's say, according to the archaeological data and written sources, in this period of time, 7th and 8th century until beginning of 9th century, was occupied by the Avars. And we have a lot of data concerning the Avar communities, Avar cemeteries and settlements too. That's why I think when we have the data about the Avar, it's much easier to discuss. Okay, it's not so easy, but it's much easier because it's clear. I think the general, let's say, frame of Avar artifacts, Avar criteria to be interpreted as a Avar community or Avar tomb or settlement or cemetery, it's already clear. And that's why we could observe in western part a concentration of Avar artifacts and Avar, of course, communities. In Inter-Carpathian region, we have various kinds of artifacts, but also various kinds of rites. Which is meaning that the communities have been living together, but used to believe in different things, because we have incineration, we have inhumation, but also we have biritual cemeteries. So rites together. So the community is probably one part of community have one kind of let's say god, and another part of community used to believe in something else. That's why they treat the dead people different than it was, let's say, like in Christianity. So also another challenge, I think, in my book, it's about the Christianity, spreading of Christianity, because some scholars, especially from Romania, considered that this period of time, it's already, let's say, most of communities accepted Christianity. But according to the archaeological data, we could observe the Christianity exists, or a Christian community exists, but not so high like it was supposed before. So we could observe by archaeological data that the situation in the region is too diverse, and we have various types of beliefs, and Christianity, it's growing, but slowly, and it's not covering the whole territory like it was supposed by. So we cannot say exactly a percentage, how much people or communities, but yeah, I think at this time, 8th and 9th century, we could say that the paganism dominating the I think each chapter it is interesting, but for the general public, most let's say interesting probably and easy could be the chapter number 5, society. Because in this chapter, I'm discussing about different, let's say, approaches to the archaeological culture. So why we have so many archaeological cultures, why archaeologists are trying to interpret some artifacts or some discoveries and to bring them in one part or in one culture or in another one. And then ethnic attribution of discoveries, which kind of communities have been existed in this period of time. So this chapter and also conclusions, I think, are very important to be analyzed by large public to understand that this area during the 8th and 9th century was very diverse, from culture, from ethnic, and also from the level of development. We cannot speak about one, let's say, ethnicity dominated the area. We have artifacts which are related to the Avar communities. We have some artifacts related to the Bulgarian communities and also to the Slavs and to Romanic, which is actually showing that during the early Middle Ages, communities have been very diverse, like the cities and the settlements are today. So people always try to find the common interest, but thinking in different beliefs and being or coming from different culture and ethnic groups. So that's why we don't have to insist that in this period of time or in another period of time, one or another community dominated and controlled everything. No, the time always was changeable. And of course, some leaders or some societies or some communities become more powerful than other one. Like we could observe at the beginning of this period of time that the Avars control the area of Pannonia until Carpathians. And then later on, Bulgars settled in south of Danube regions and become an important power in this area together with the Slavs. And later on, the Romanic communities also showed the power and developed the community, but developed the statehood later on during the Middle Ages. That's why we have to read careful and to try to understand that society always, or the communities always try to survive and to find the common way of development. And that's, I think, for 8th and 9th century, in some parts of these 2 centuries, we could discuss about Pax Avarica, Pax Hazarica, because comparatively with the previous 2 centuries or later 2 centuries, more or less these 2 centuries are peaceful than it was before or later one. I'm moving to different project, but I will come back to this project because the English version of the book, it's a little bit, it's shorter than it was planned at the beginning. So I'm planning to publish Romanian version of the book and to cover actually, or to put all information which I developed during the project. So probably in the next couple of years, I will publish a Romanian version of the book, including the catalogue of discoveries, which is actually another volume of 100 pages, or a couple of hundred pages, presenting the information concerning the settlements, the cemeteries, and the tombs. Actually, this is the, let's say, the volume of presenting the source of analysis. And the first volume will be, of course, the book result of analysis and interpretation of the data. Yes, I'm doing some research on heritage preservation. It's another area of my interest, and yeah, during the last years, I have been focused my attention to preservation management and also the legal framework in Republic of Moldova, in Romania. So we published last year, I think, an impressive volume of the World Heritage in Romania, the management of the sites, and also best practices from other parts of the world, and to try to do some suggestions for the future improvements in Romania, but also concerning the other World Heritage sites in Europe and around the world.